Today's episode is brought to you by Positively Productive Systems, whose mission is to be the antidote to your stress and to provide compassionate productivity resources and coaching that help you heal and achieve. Be sure to check out both free and paid resources at positivelyproductive.com/resources. The reason we become overwhelmed is because too many thoughts not only take up space in our minds, they vie for attention. When there's too much to remember, you use energy that you may not even have in situations where it shouldn't be necessary. You struggle to figure out what to do next, and you wander around perpetually worried that you have forgotten something. Holding on to information mentally means being perpetually distracted, as if we need more help with that, right? When that happens, you don't have the mental capacity to process information. To put it another way, when you use your brain for information storage, you miss out on using it for innovation and troubleshooting. You lose your creative capacity. You're listening to the Positively Living Podcast. I'm your host, Lisa Zaratny, founder of Positively Productive Systems and a productivity coach certified in positive psychology and stress management. Join me as we explore ways to live a more proactive, positive life with episodes on productivity, self-awareness, mindset, entrepreneur life, habits and systems, simplicity, fun, and more. I understand overwhelm personally as a multi-passionate entrepreneur, wife and mom to kids and cats, and as a caregiver. I'm here to help you choose what's right for you so you can do less, live more, and breathe easier. Sound good? Let's get to it. Welcome to the Positively Living Podcast. I'm your host, Lisa, and I'm so glad you're with me today. If you've been listening for a while, I so appreciate you making this a habit and supporting the podcast. If you're new here, thank you for taking a chance, and I think you picked a fantastic episode to start. As I like to tell my kids, just because I'm biased doesn't mean I'm wrong. Before we dig into our topic, may I ask a quick favor? If you've been a listener and a fan of the show, or you've listened today and found value, would you please share the episode with others? And if you're on the Apple platform, I'd be honored if you'd leave a review as well. It can be specific to the episode or simply recommending the podcast. Either way, whatever you choose, it will help others find the show and find encouragement and hope along with it. Now let's dig into a how-to episode I think you'll really appreciate. As a matter of fact, I just asked a favor of you, and if you're planning to do it and want to make sure you don't forget, you can use this approach. We're going to dig into a concept called capturing. I'll share the origins of capturing, what it is, how it connects to mind sweeps and clutter, topics I've shared previously on the podcast, where you do it, and the specific way I use capturing in my very active, multi-passionate life. While I don't presume to know what your life is all about, I bet I can guess one thing about you. You handle a lot. You keep track of so much, and your life gets hectic. And I'd warrant a follow-up guess that you struggle sometimes to manage all the things that come at you. I know I do. I'm a productivity coach. I have all the tools, and I still do. This is normal, and we can also do something about it. And this is the system I use to make sure that I keep managing all the things. Whether you're handling the mental load of caregiving or your mind is overflowing with ideas, or both, which is pretty much me 24/7, it's overwhelming. It can be beautiful and amazing and challenging too, but it's also draining, and it can keep you from functioning at your best. And now we live in a world buzzing with activity and information. So many years ago, when people called life, quote, simpler, I think it was because we had less immediate access to all the information and more moments to pause and take a breath. Now there's no break unless we create it. And with this constant barrage, how do you keep track of everything so what's important doesn't fall through the cracks? How do you avoid that horrible feeling in the pit of your stomach when you realize you forgot something that mattered. Years ago, when I was a caregiver for my mom and my children at the same time, I discovered a technique that has been a game changer. Now, the essence of it is not new. All of my list makers are going to be holding up their notebooks with glee and being like, yeah, I'm totally on it. The idea of taking your thoughts and putting them on paper is quite common, and with good reason, it's very effective. From grocery lists to journaling, you name it. But there are some ways to approach it with a more intentional, organized way. And what we're talking about today, called capturing, is a concept that originated from David Allen's productivity system called Getting Things Done, or nicknamed GTD for short. The GTD framework was designed to help individuals manage their tasks, projects, and commitments effectively. Its aim is to enhance focus, clarity, and control by providing a structured approach to capturing, processing, organizing, reviewing, and doing tasks. And those are the steps involved. Like the name Getting Things Done indicates, its end goal is to take necessary action. But there are steps required before you can do so in a truly productive way. After all, action without intention and without structure will likely leave you spinning, stuck in busy mode. You can be doing a lot and not really being effective, and that is something I do not want for you. This is not happening on my watch. Okay, the steps of the GTD system are capture, clarify, organize, reflect, and engage. Our focus today will relate to capturing. And if you're curious about the whole system, you can check out David Allen's book. As with all the books mentioned on the podcast, you can find it on an Amazon list via my resources page of the website. Go to positivelyproductive.com/resources and scroll down to the frequently recommended books link. Capturing is essentially collecting everything that has your attention. Tasks, ideas, reminders, and placing it all into a trusted system. Could be an inbox, a notebook. And that basically translates to a safe place where you can reference the information when you are ready. One of the main tenets of the system is to reduce mental clutter, which is one of my favorite topics. By capturing your thoughts and tasks, you free up mental space and you reduce your stress. It's the most effective way to handle overwhelm, and it's why I focus so much on tackling our clutter. Because once we do, our focus and our productivity are proven to increase. Allen calls the process of capturing something a mind sweep, and I think that's such a great visual. It makes me think of sweeping out the cobwebs, and the way this works, you might pull out some lingering thoughts that do feel like they must be covered with dust. The reason we become overwhelmed is because too many thoughts not only take up space in our minds, they vie for attention. When there's too much to remember, you use energy that you may not even have in situations where it shouldn't be necessary. You struggle to figure out what to do next, and you wander around perpetually worried that you have forgotten something. Holding on to information mentally means being perpetually distracted, as if we need more help with that, right? When that happens, you don't have the mental capacity to process information. To put it another way, when you use your brain for information storage, you miss out on using it for innovation and troubleshooting. You lose your creative capacity. Because holding information in your brain constantly pulls focus, that also means a current task doesn't have your full attention or appreciation. If it's easy, you can probably get away with it. If it's complex, you are likely to experience errors and frustration. And yes, if that sounds like I'm talking about mindfulness and being present, you're right. Mindfulness and focus are deeply linked. In order to capture what has your attention properly, you're going to need to do a mind sweep. And if you're curious how to do that, you'll want to download one or both of the following. My Focus File Workbook. It's a free workbook in the Positively Productive Toolkit, along with the Joy List and the Core Values Workbook. And or the guided mind sweep. That's a free audio where I walk you through a mind sweep in just 5 minutes. So you can download the audio and do it from anywhere, no special tools required. You can request either or both of these on the resources page of the website. Both of them offer different ways to approach asking the right questions in order to sweep your mind effectively. Now, let's focus on the specifics of where this information will go once you ask the questions and sweep the mind. So when you do a mind sweep, you're going to create a space where you can dump all those to-dos, ideas, worries, and reminders that are swirling around in your head. That's why people call it a brain dump sometimes. Now, this could be a physical notebook. It could be a digital to-do list or an app that's dedicated to this, or even notes on your smartphone. This could be voice capture too, or it can be dictated or written out. The key is to choose a tool that you feel comfortable with and that you can access easily. For caregivers, this might mean jotting down a quick note about work while you're waiting for school pickup, or capturing a question for the doctor about your loved one's care plan while you're folding laundry. For creatives, it could look like keeping a small notebook or a sketchbook in your bag to capture those ideas that strike when you're out and about. You're in the dairy aisle of the grocery store and suddenly you have this inspiration. Or maybe it's capturing screenshots and saving them in an inspo file for future projects. You can probably start to see how, I don't want to set off the systems depending upon what you're listening to. So we have the Echo Dot, and I've nicknamed her Alejandra. So like Alejandra, or the one that sounds funny and starts with a G and ends with an E, okay? Those are ways that you can create a capture by vocal commands. You could also create a capture of sorts, maybe in a Pinterest file, but make sure that you keep it super simple. Of so many options, what capture tool sounds best to you when I describe these things? Notebooks, Rocketbooks, different kinds of apps. You want something that resonates, yes, but also is the simplest to use, especially depending upon where you are at the time. And so even though we have some really incredible digital tools, you might find pen and paper to be your best choice in this case, because it goes everywhere with you, no matter what. You don't have to rely on Wi-Fi or anything else for that matter. So you want to choose what works and commit to using it consistently. Try it. You want to create a habit of capturing, and you want to see if it will work for you. And with all of that, I have a confession to make. My question just now on which capture tool sounds best, and the advice on selecting one to start, is somewhat unfair. Whether you're a multi-passionate and hate to choose, or you're simply juggling a lot and on the move throughout the day, you may want multiple ways to capture. So that's the perfect segue to sharing my approach, which can sound complex at first because there's multiple points of capture, but you want to think about it as a funnel of sorts. I cast a wide net because that's what I need for my life. My days consist of domestic duties such as meal planning and grocery runs, all kinds of errands, parenting duties like paperwork and pickup, and all kinds of calendar management that goes with that. And of course, business responsibilities from operations to admin to content creation, like organizing and recording a podcast. I am the calendar point person for the entire family as well, probably no shock to you. And I design a command center each week in our kitchen for everyone to see. And that is a great example of, despite the fact that we use many digital apps, and we definitely use our calendar app, and everyone is involved in that and has the same calendar events in it. I also write it out on the fridge because everyone processes it differently when they see it visually in a space that we spend a lot of time in. So I needed to have flexible ways to hold an idea the minute it came flying through my brain, in the strangest places, mind you. Isn't that always the way? And sometimes it's a quick moment, and other times I have more time and it can be a reflective one. I use a combination of my iPhone Notes app and a Rocketbook to get the majority of the job done. I will also use like a bullet journal. My favorite is the Leuchtturm 1917 if I have time to sit down and reflect or journal. So if I'm in the store or sitting in the car, I will most likely capture thoughts in my Notes app. And I have one particular note that is labeled with my capture, so I know that's immediately where I go. It's the first one because I'm using it all the time. I will also carry a tiny paper notebook in my purse if I'm in a situation where it would be, or at least seem inappropriate to use a phone, or maybe, my battery's low and I don't want to. My Notes app is mostly for those on-the-go moments. Because I have my phone handy, I have it with me anyhow, and I want to jot down something fast. Now, my Rocketbook is where I do my almost daily mind sweeps, as well as off-the-cuff captures. So as I'm working at my desk, that's where I will write it. I will have an ongoing mind sweep for the day, basically a capture for the day. I may not do the full mind sweep, but as things come up, it's a great way for me to stay focused on what I'm doing and then go right to that page where I can jot down this other idea, this other thought, another request that's come in, put that there, and then deal with it later. Some of the things I personally love about the Rocketbook is that I am actually writing, and handwriting has a different connection to our brain. There's like a neurosensory response that we have that's very effective in terms of like our memory and our processing. And then also I can save what I've written as a PDF even after having processed everything that's on there. So it's kind of a backup. And then I can erase the page and keep writing and save some trees in the process. So that means a lot to me. Fun fact, I recently purchased a mini version of the Rocketbook that has now taken the place of the mini paper notebook in my purse, and I'm loving that. Also, I'm a huge fan of the fine liner marker instead of the erasable pens. So if that's something that's been bothering you because they felt really smudgy and kind of hard to write with, you may want to try it. If you're curious about any of the tools that I've mentioned, you can find them on a dedicated list. Go to the resources page of the positivelyproductive.com website and scroll down past the podcast book recommendations link to writing and journals link, and you'll find all the things I mentioned there. The key to multi-location capture is that you have to have a system to properly process the different captures and not just let it be like so spread out. It's okay to capture it in different spots, but then you have to bring it to a central location. And that can be done either by combining them in a location or immediately tending to them and processing them. So the way I do it is actually both, depending upon the situation. When I'm reviewing notes on my phone, I clarify and organize them, which is essentially steps 2 and 3 of getting things done, if there are only a few. However, if there are many, let's say I was out for quite some time and I've jotted down a ton of things, I will actually incorporate them into my mind sweep or my capture that I have in the Rocketbook for that day, and then review and process it all together. And then where do they go from there? Well, that could be another episode if you'd like to know. As a quick hint, it tends to be a combination of 3 things. One would be immediate completion. It could just go right on my current to-do list if it's quick or there's an impending deadline. The second thing would be it goes right to my calendar if there's a specific time frame or deadline related to it, or it's some kind of appointment. And then the third is my task management software, which is Todoist. And there's a number of reasons I've chosen that. I'm happy to talk about it in another episode if that's something you're curious about. That allows me to add deadlines and prioritize as well. And as a side note, Todoist is used by many people who are fans of the GTD system. And they use the software inbox as their capture area. I chose not to because I prefer to use notes on my smartphone. It just feels easier to me. But again, as I said before, it's about selecting what feels best to you. The best system for you is the one you will use. Speaking of which, I would love to know what system you have for keeping track of things, or if you would like to try this mind sweep and capture approach that we talked about today. It starts with choosing at least one that you can readily try to safely hold your thoughts and to-dos. That's the first step. So what sounds like a good place for you to start? As you decide what you're going to try, please remember that I am here cheering you on and supporting you on your journey to a more organized and fulfilling life. Thank you for joining me today. Your time is precious and limited, and I'm honored you chose to spend it with me. If you have feedback, questions, or want to schedule a chat, head to positivelyproductive.com/connect. And if you are looking for any of the resources referenced on the podcast, from books to products to training and more, go to positivelyproductive.com/resources.